Hi, I'm the Space Quest Historian. It's been a fair while now since Adventure Jam 2021, and I wanted to do this video to showcase players having an absolutely miserable time playing our game, All Demons Must Go to Hell, because it was deliberately designed to be the most obnoxious, infuriating adventure game ever created. Now, if you haven't played it yourself, it's free over on GameJolt, there's a link in the description. If you can't be bothered to play it yourself, then don't worry. I posted a challenge when I announced the game a month ago, and I'm happy to say that more than a few streamers have assumed the position and willfully subjected themselves to the digital flogging that is this game.
God fucking damn stupid fucking shit. Again?
So in this video, I'll tell you all about the mechanics of the game, how it all works, and most importantly, how these poor souls' lives could have been made that much easier through the magic of cheating. I'm gonna split this into two parts though, because I've been writing the script now for what seems like forever, and it's already shaping up to be a massive video, one that I'm not sure a lot of people are gonna enjoy, to be honest, because it's really just me talking about a game I made to piss people off. So I'm gonna call this part 1 and talk about the game mechanics and the puzzles, and then in part 2 we can dive deeper into the story, the music, and the Easter eggs. So first of all, let's have a quick look at the interface.
Adventure Think Tank, thank you.
Oh my god.
Nope. Not okay with this.
I don't have any instructions. Oh! Oh god. Here we have, the verbs. There are many of them. Oh, okay, so right-click brings up the bullshit.
How do I move? Walk? Wait. There's too many! There's too many! There's too many verbs!
Here they are. Here are all the verbs. Close, dispute, flip, fondle, give, hang, insert, inspect, kick, lick, look, open, pick up, poke, pour, caress, push, pull, read, rip, rub, search, shout, smell, swallow, talk, touch, turn off, turn on, unlock, and up. Yeah.
All of these buttons set a variable called current verb that tells the game what verb was selected, and then when you click on an in-game hotspot, it simply checks if there's a message or action associated with the currently selected verb, and if there isn't, which is most cases, it redirects you to a function called generic response, and the generic responses just fire off one or more possibly random responses, which in broad terms just mean we either didn't think anyone would try that, or we just didn't have time to write a message for it. And if you've played the game, you've probably seen these generic responses a lot, because we really didn't have a lot of time to put in more than just the bare essentials. This did, however, have the wonderful, if unintentional, side effect of leading players to speculate and theorize wildly about potential puzzle solutions, since the game was being so stingy with feedback.
I wanna put the gum in the... Oops. Insert chewed gum. No? Okay, I guess not.
Press desk.
Pull the desk.
Do everything to the desk. Kick desk.
Similarly, the inventory system is just a pile of garbage that I'm surprised even works as well as it does, considering it was designed to be as awful as possible. Ironically, the biggest hurdle with the inventory system was getting the equip and unequip system to work, and also making sure that whenever a player used an item that was then meant to go missing from their inventory, that the spent object wouldn't still remain as equipped and thus still be able to be used around the game world. As with a lot of this game, the built-in features that Adventure Game Studio provides are simply too good and user-friendly, and the inventory system is one of those. By default, when you select an inventory item from the built-in inventory window in AGS, the item then has its own mouse icon that can then be used to click on stuff in the game world and make things happen, and I actually had to jump through a few hoops to make the inventory system not fire its default behavior. What I ended up doing was, whenever the player clicks Equip, it checks what inventory item is currently at the top of the item list, which in this case is the item currently visible in this tiny little window here, which is actually AGS's default inventory window reduced to the size of a single inventory item, and then it sets another variable called current inv, or current inventory. And then when the player clicks on a hotspot in the game world, the game not only checks what verb you've selected, but also whether or not you have an inventory item equipped. And this is not a very flexible system. It is in fact a pain in the ass, but the upside is it's just as much of a pain pain in the ass for the player as it is for the programmer. So I guess on that front it does as intended. Let's talk about the Labyrinth for a bit. Now, in the game code, this is all just the same room. Room 2 is just called Labyrinth, and Wilhelm never actually leaves this room the entire time he's in the Labyrinth. The default room has 4 exits, north, south, east, and west. It then has 4 impassable walls covering each exit that can be switched on or off depending on where the player is in the Labyrinth. Here's the actual map of the Labyrinth. You'll notice each of these rooms have internal room numbers. Every time Wilhelm walks out of an exit, the game teleports him into the same room, room 2 again. It then checks a variable to see what internal Labyrinth room number he's supposed to be in and how many exits there are in that given room. And then it simply blocks off the exits that aren't supposed to be available by putting up a wall to cover those exits. And there's actually a debug command in the console. I forgot to mention there's a dev console in the game. You hit tab to bring it up, and yes, this was coded from scratch as well. Anyway, there's a code here called count rooms, which displays the current internal Labyrinth room number. These room numbers do more than just keep track of where Wilhelm is, though. They also keep track of where the randomly placed objects in the Labyrinth are, and those would be the cogwheel, the handle, and this dead mailman. And the dirty little secret here is that these objects are not entirely randomly placed, and those rooms were specifically chosen by me, although not with a great level of foresight. In fact, one build of the game had a 1 in 5th chance of being impossible to finish because the handle could potentially spawn in a room that had a wall blocking the south exit, which effectively obscured the handle entirely, thus making it impossible for the player to see and pick it up. Anyway, when the Labyrinth reloads the room, it also checks if there's supposed to be an object here, and if so, it makes that object visible. All the objects that can potentially be in the Labyrinth, and this goes for all the posters on the wall as well, and the sign that's in the first room when you enter the Labyrinth, are all technically present in the room at all times. They're just rendered invisible if the player happens to be a room where they aren't supposed to be. Since the 3 items, the cogwheel, the handle, and the dead mailman, are somewhat randomly placed, there are of course handy debug cheats that'll tell you exactly where they are. Where is cogwheel, where is handle, and where is Pete? Will tell you the room number of the 3 items. The mailman being named Pete is a reference to the show Arrested Development, where there's also a dead mailman named Pete. Now, if knowing the room number and the location of the items isn't good enough for you, then there's an even lazier approach. Simply type go to cogwheel, go to handle, or go to Pete to teleport straight to the room number they're in. And if even that is too much for you, then there's also specific cheats that just give you the objects needed to solve whatever puzzles these items are used for, but we'll get to that. Last thing to talk about in the Labyrinth is Gary. Everybody loves Gary.
Oh god! Oh god!
Fuck off, Gary. Nobody asked for your opinion.
That is really annoying. Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh my god.
What are you?
Oh my god. Bye.
That's not
Horrifying.
okay.
I'm getting tired of Gary's shenanigans. I'm getting absolutely tired.
Oh no, he's coming from there now. Oh, what a pest.
Fucking Gary.
Oh, well, hello. Ah! Gary, no. Gary? I need you to fuck all of the way off.
Oh yeah, roaming nuisance Gary, and yes, his initials are RNG, brought so much delight and merriment to everyone who played the game, and quite frankly, he's the worst idea we've ever had. Not just in terms of being a pain in the ass when you're playing the game.
This game is made about 180% longer because of Gary. Still after me. If you make me go back to the gumball machine, I swear I'm going to kick your ass and SQH's too.
Oh, that's delightful. But also in terms of just how fucking hard he was to program into it. Pro tip for aspiring game developers: if you only have 2 weeks to put your game together, don't put in a roaming monster that can chase the player around. Now, Gary works, or rather doesn't work, on a few levels. In his current incarnation as of version 1.1, he has a 1 in 8th chance of spawning whenever room 2 loads. That means every time Wilhelm enters the Labyrinth room, either from another room in the game or simply from reloading the Labyrinth room when you exit through one of the doorways, the game does a dice roll to see if Gary will make an appearance or not. If not, it then does another dice roll to see if it should display what we call the freak out messages. These are the random messages that sometimes pop up to say that Wilhelm hears scurrying feet or sees something out of the corner of his eye. They don't actually mean anything, and they have no bearing whatsoever on whether Gary is actually about to show up or not, but we very much like that some people did in fact think we were actually that clever.
Oh, I haven't gone left yet in this. Something moved. What does that mean? I don't like that. I do not like that. Where? What? What does that mean? I don't understand. I don't like it.
Anyway, if the game decides Gary should show up, it then has to decide what direction he should come from, and this is where we had the most problems. See, obviously Gary isn't supposed to come out of an exit that's blocked off, so the game first has to find out which exits are available to him. And originally, I wanted this to be as random as possible. I wanted the game to figure out how many exits were available in the given room, and then pick an exit at random for Gary to spawn in. And this proved to be a bit more than I was actually capable of doing. So, what it does now is actually much less random, but given the nature of the labyrinth, I'm happy to say that it still appears fairly random. And to my knowledge, no one has yet to figure out what Gary's pattern is. So, here it is. First, Gary will assume every door is open to him and will pick one at random. The game then checks if the exit he picked is actually open. If it is, good, then he spawns from there. If the exit he picked is blocked off, however, the game then tells Gary to go sit in a corner and not be such a dumbass, while it does a round robin, starting from the north exit and going around clockwise until it finds an open door, and then Gary will spawn from that door. And that means if Gary shows up in a room where the north exit is blocked but the east exit is open, then he'll come out of the east exit. If both north and east are blocked but south is open, he'll come out of the south exit. And if every exit is blocked except for the west exit, he'll come out of the west exit. And that's why you very rarely see him come at you from the left. Luckily, he still appears random enough to piss people off.
Be a shame if Gary showed up. That roaming nuisance. I was kidding. But I guess I shouldn't have tempted Gary. That useless sack of shit.
Well,
Oh, come on!
And there's something on the dead person. Oh, for crying out loud. Let's go back then.
Some people might think that I'm being too hard on Gary. And to them I say, go fuck yourself.
I was just in that room. You couldn't have been in that room. Piss off.
Ah! Jesus.
Fuck off. Guess which door I needed to go through there. Guess.
Look at him. Look at his stupid fucking face. I don't want to hang out at the water cooler with Gary. He's a useless motherfucker.
Gary, you're fired.
Oh, and if he appears, he also follows you around the labyrinth. And the way this works is, whenever Gary spawns, the game sets a variable that Gary is now following you to true. It will then pick a random number between 0 and 5 to decide how many screens Gary should follow you before giving up. If it picks 0, then he doesn't follow you at all. If it picks anything greater than 0, then the next time you enter a labyrinth room and the Gary is following you variable is set to true, then there's a short timer that counts down before Gary will spawn. It also sidesteps the picking a door at random code and instead checks what exit you went through and then spawns Gary from the opposite exit to give the appearance that he's actually following you. Now, since you are effectively entering the same room over and over again, then quite comically, Gary actually gets teleported in and out of the room with startling frequency whenever he's following you, because otherwise he'd just magically already be in the next room you went into. In fact, when you enter a labyrinth room, the game teleports Gary to his waiting room and then teleports him out of it whenever he's actually supposed to show up. This is that waiting room. Now, there's no way to actually get to this room from the game itself, but I thought Gary needed a nice place to rest up in between chasing the player around, so I took a photo of a beach property from some real estate website and made it Gary's swinging seaside pad. Now, I actually had to rewrite Gary's entire code on the night we launched the game because it was so broken. For reasons I could never figure out, Gary had trouble figuring out how many doors were open, and he seemed to always be one room behind. He was going by what entrances were open or closed in the previous room you were in. And this led to the equally horrifying and comical unintentional side effect that Gary would sometimes come out of solid walls. Other times, the game would just not pick an entrance at all, even though there were entrances was available, a state that we termed Gary is confused. Now, while it was kind of appropriate that the roaming monster in our game seemed to have a mind of its own, and that even we, the developers, weren't entirely sure how he worked, in the end I got so fed up with it that I decided to just rewrite the whole thing. Now he's a lot more predictable, but at least he works.
You unmitigated cockwankle.
Okay, enough about Gary for now. Let's talk about some of the puzzles. So, Torpedo Bear and I came up with the puzzles pretty much on the first brainstormer we had. There wasn't really a lot of second guessing, which I guess explains why we have a giant gumball machine that only dispenses a single gumball, or a bottle of Miracle Grow that will grow any tree in a matter of seconds, but only one. Now, Torpedo Bear was really the story guy on this one, and I was more fixated on the technical aspects and the meta stuff with the puzzles. From my perspective, each of these puzzles represents something that I hate in adventure games. The giant gumball machine was supposed to be a riff on this puzzle from Fate of Atlantis, where you fix a machine using some junk you just find in the maze, and you have no idea how it's supposed to work. You just have to trial and error your way to fixing it. And I wanted the gumball machine puzzle to be kind of like that, like you had to put the bits on in a certain order, maybe rotate the cogwheel X number of times in a certain direction before it would work, with no hints as to why, but in the end I just kind of settled for slapping the two items onto it. And I kind of regret not doing more, but then again, having to find the items randomly placed in the maze and then wrestle with the dumbfuck UI to find the right verb kind of felt like maybe I'd maybe made my point. Although, in the end, the puzzle ended up riffing on an entirely different pet peeve of mine than was intended. So instead of bullshit machine-fixy puzzles, it became a riff on randomly placed items instead. The canteen was mostly Torpedo Bear's idea. Now, when we were brainstorming, we were trying to figure out where to get the wire, and Bear just said, how about a cafeteria where there's a robot, and you have to get the robot to serve you a wire salad? And the puzzle originally was about ordering the right plate of food that would then make the robot serve you a bowl of wires, based off of, and I'm not kidding, reciting the right lyrics to a Nine Inch Nails song. All the meals on the menu would be references to Nine Inch Nails songs, and we were then going to have the complete song lyric booklet to the Downward Spiral be an inventory item that you could find in the Labyrinth, and you would then have to read it in order to work out which item to order. We came to our senses shortly after that first meeting, and I think it was me who suggested, how about we just make the robot kill itself? And Torpedo Bear then scaled that back to getting it drunk and having it vomit its wires up.
I don't feel so good.
Oh no. Oh no, robot vomit. Oh god.
Well, there's some wires here now.
That's not German. That is Französisch.
Sausage. I don't feel so good.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, I guess that was the right thing to do.
Blah.
This bit with the tram on the timer, though, that was my doing, and I don't think I even told Torpedo Bear about what I had done until I showed him the screen with the twisted walkway on it, and luckily he liked it. The location was originally just going to be some sort of mail sorting room with an outgoing mail postbox, but as I was drawing the room, I sort of went off into a weird place and ended up drawing what is now in the game.
This looks normal.
The tram being on a timer is a technique that's been used countless times to piss me off in games, the most notable example probably being the goat puzzle in Broken Sword, where you have to move something and then quickly run past the goat before the whole thing resets. And on top of that indignity, I also added the limitation that you had to be close enough to the tram before you could board it, and likewise with the control panel in order to launch the tram. Mechanically, this was to prevent the player from just clicking on the correct verb on the console and then on the tram and having Wilhelm walk over there on autopilot, but it also gave me a chance to riff on that most hated of all hated phrases in Sierra games: "You're not close enough."
What?
I was on it!
Alle Wörter sind Zauberwörter. Alle Wörter sind Zauberwörter. Alle Wörter sind Zauberwörter. Alle Wörter sind Zauberwörter.
Guess I'll die!
Come on, hurry up. Hurry up. Walk to the tram before it leaves. Yep. Are we on it? No. I thought we were on the tram, but we're not.
Then we're going to click open, open, open. Where's open? Open. There's open. No, nah. Fine.
The Miracle Grow puzzle is twofold. First of all, it involves finding a piece of mail and then finding a stamp in order to mail it, which is a staple of dull adventure game puzzle design. After you've gotten the Miracle Grow, you then have to work out which plant to grow in order to get the same fruit as the gum flavor that Satan here is chewing. Satan can chew 5 different flavors, and they're picked randomly when you talk to him the first time. The puzzle here is riffing on how doing the wrong thing can soft lock you and then put you in a dead man walking situation. Because if you get the wrong fruit, you are effectively dead. You can't finish the game. And in fact, there is a lengthy dialogue exchange if you happen to give Satan the wrong fruit, which is actually my favorite exchange that Torpedo Bear wrote purely because of this concept he invented called reverse Catholicism.
Exactly, reverse Catholicism. And we all know that in normal Catholicism, you get punished with an eternity in hell if you kill yourself.
So,
if someone was to provide Wilhelm with, say, a noose, oh, the shame that I feel.
Again, content warning.
Now, if you want to see this without having to bother with the whole mess of getting on the tram and getting the Miracle Grow and all that, you can just type "give wrong fruit" in the dev console. However, the puzzle is so dumb that most people get it right on the first go and never bother going back to check what happens if you give him the wrong fruit. It actually turns out that people had a harder time getting the Miracle Grow than actually using it for something, when I thought, or I at least hoped, that it would be the other way around, so, oh well.
Delegation.
I hope there's not a quiz on all this at the end.
The Motivational Posters puzzle, well, not much to say about this one. The posters never change position or content, and the puzzle itself is trivial because you can just ask the AI over and over again and it'll randomize the question each time. So even if you've only read 1 or 2 posters, you can eventually solve the puzzle anyway because it'll eventually randomize to one that you've got. The main challenge with this one, it seems, was getting people to realize you could actually read the posters.
What about ripping the poster?
Ripping the poster. Not too violent in this case.
Oh, okay.
Can we rip the poster? No, it's too violent.
Can I inspect? Closer inspection of the poster reveals that it is fastened on the wall. There is also some writing on it which presumably can be read. Read. Didn't I already read it?
And finally, there's the sliding tile puzzle.
Before you start, I have 2 things to say to you, Wilhelm.
Oh dear.
Yeah?
Yes. The first thing is that you must always remember that saying something is stupid and then doing it anyway is not satire. That's just being aware that you're being stupid.
Okay, and the second one?
The second one is, have fun with this sliding tile puzzle.
Fuck!
Have fun with this sliding tile puzzle. Have fun with this sliding tile puzzle.
I will do no such thing. I hate sliding tile puzzles so much.
Have fun with this sliding tile puzzle.
If that's not the perfect way to end this game, I don't know what is.
Yay! And by the way, I hate the sliding tile puzzle too. So,
I actually honestly like sliding tile puzzles. I know some people really hate them, but I actually like them. Oh wait, how does this one work exactly?
I don't have to tell you why there's a sliding tile puzzle in this game or why we saved it for last. Sliding tile puzzles are the worst. And Mask of Eternity finished with a sliding tile puzzle, so of course we would do the same. This one is a bit more evil because it also shows you the finished image under the tiles, which makes it all the more disorienting. And this was actually a mistake that I made, and I did fix it so there would be a blank background underneath it instead, but when Torpedo Bear saw the broken version, he said, no, let's keep this. I mean, this is hell, right?
Shouldn't be too hard. Oh.
Wait, what? Oh. Wait, what? Wait. I'm not sure this sliding tile puzzle is working the way sliding tile puzzles are supposed to work.
I hate this. This is absurd. Like, yeah, whatever, I'll hang out with Satan, but, like, don't make me put up with the sliding piece puzzle.
Huh? I don't understand this at all. This is not like a sliding tile puzzle that I've seen before.
Oh, I guess, okay, so it's actually, oh, I see what it's doing. It's actually showing me where the pieces are supposed to go. I see. Okay. I'm not used to sliding tile puzzles doing that. Yeah, that's weird. That's weird and confusing.
What is this? Is this showing me the picture underneath? This is where all these things go? That is obnoxious. Oh my god, are you serious?
It's not following the rules that it should be following.
Yes, it is.
Am I doing this wrong? Help me, brother.
No, that top corner piece is not right. It's confusing because there's other pieces like under it. It's like it's trying to confuse you. Oh no, wait, no. Oh no, it's actually telling you what it's supposed to be. Oh, I guess that's supposed to make it easier, but it actually made it more confusing.
The picture is underneath the picture that you're supposed to make here? Wow, that's bad. This is so bad.
Fucking hell. If there's any way to make a sliding tile puzzle more annoying than sliding tile puzzles already are, this is how to do it.
Guys, you gotta remind me, if I ever... I like to tell people, you know, if they do something cool, I like to say, like, oh, I owe you a drink for that. If I ever tell Space Quest Historian I owe him a drink for something, I'm going to immediately retract that because of this puzzle. It will be like trying to, you know, reaching maxent with the amount of drinks I owe him and then wrapping back to -1.
I hate this. Oh, cheat. How long was the cheat button there?
He did also insist, though, that a button to skip the puzzle should appear after a certain amount of moves. And originally that number was 666, because of course it was. But it turns out that 666 is a lot of moves, and most sane people would have given up long before, or just solved it by accident by then, so we reduced the number to 100 moves. Now, if you want to skip the puzzle entirely, typing rat's ass in the dev console will also skip it, and this is a reference to the debug enable command from King's Quest III. Anyway, here are some cheat codes for helping you solve the puzzles. Give Miracle Grow in one word, will give you a bottle of Miracle Grow regardless of whether you've grown a tree or not, so you can just grow the whole garden this way if you want. And Kill All Plants will reset the garden. If you just want the right fruit to give to Satan, then Give Fruit will bypass the whole Miracle Grow bullshit and just give you the correct fruit. Likewise, Give GGM Fix will give you both the cogwheel and the handle. GGM, of course, stands for Giant Gumball Machine. Give Screen Fix gives you both bits of gum and the wire so you can fix the AI Guardian. And finally, Read All Posters marks all the posters in the maze as read, which then gives you all the answers you need for the final AI puzzle. Now, Gary has his own cheat codes as well. If he spawns, you can despawn him by just typing in Piss Off Gary. You can also force spawn him if you want to by typing Spawn Gary. Which reminds me, some people have wondered what Gary actually is supposed to be, and I have literally no idea. He's just a monster. Now, my original vision for him was like this big Yeti-like lumbering creature that would drop from the ceiling and surprise you, but I had no idea how to actually draw or animate that. And then when we settled on photographing real people for the sprites, I figured, okay, let's make him like a spider-like creature. I'll get on my hands and knees and crawl around for a bit, and then I'll Photoshop spider legs onto him. But then when it came time to actually make the sprite, I forgot all about the spider legs idea, and I just started removing various body parts and replacing them with whatever weird shit I could find. The first thing I did was remove my head and replace it with squid tentacles, and I thought that looked pretty rad. Then I removed my hands and replaced them with chicken legs. And finally I thought, you know what, he needs a tail. So I went on Google, and this is true, Googled for half an hour trying to find the perfect horse's ass to paste onto my real butt. And for the sprite of him that's actually facing upwards, I had to mash together 2 horse butt cheeks and paste in a tail from a completely different horse to make that work. But when he moved, oh my god, I nearly had an aneurysm from laughing so hard. And then, fortuitously, when I imported the sprite into the game, I'd actually grossly misjudged the scale of him. I thought he would just be a tiny bit larger than Wilhelm, but he came out looking absolutely massive. But he was just big enough to fit through the doors, so I kept him the size that he is. And the last thing I'll say about Gary, and this is something surprisingly few people have found out about, is that you can talk to him.
I'm so happy to speak with someone. Most people just run away screaming.
This voice is so good.
You're a big scary monster. Look, I'm sorry. Is that your real voice?
Yes.
And this changes his behavior entirely. For one, he has the most annoying voice of all time. He's actually voiced by Torpedo Bear's girlfriend. Second, he will no longer attack you if you stay in the room with him. However, his chance of spawning increases significantly. And this is not a good trade-off because he will block whatever entrance he comes out of, and you still run the risk of getting murdered by him in dead ends. Now, originally going into a dead end while being followed by Gary, regardless of whether he was your friend or not, was a surefire death sentence, but I actually changed that in a later version to it being a 1 in 3 chance of dying. My reasoning was that some people would assume the dead ends were safe, but then dying in one later, and then becoming increasingly paranoid that they couldn't trust the monster. Now, Torpedo Bear didn't really like this change very much. He said I had nerfed Gary, and he may be right. We'll see how we feel about this dead end mercy thing when we get around to doing the special edition of the game, which we actually will do, but I was glad to see streamers who had already played earlier versions of the game come on other people's streams and see this new mercy thing and then going, what the fuck?
I'll take it.
Anyway, I think that's enough for now. Now, like I said, I'm splitting this into 2 videos because otherwise this is going to go on for way too long. And I want to give Torpedo Bear a chance to talk about the work he did on the story and the character development, as well as share some interesting tidbits about the soundtrack, and show you some of the bizarre and weird Easter eggs that we put in the game. Like the Space Quest reference, where if you're on the screen with the dead mailman and you type "fuck dead body" in the console, it will give you this response from Space Quest 2. Anyway, that's all for next time. I hope you've enjoyed this part 1, and I'll see you for part 2. And until then, around the Chrono Stream. Bye!